Namaskarams to the Astikas present in this August gathering. I think way back in 2006 or 7, I don't remember. As a student in Pilani, I had the pleasure of being audience to the Royal Splendors of Mysore, which was released by Sri Vikram Sampath. I still remember the quotation that he made that day from the book. Malingi maduvagi tarakadu maralagi malingi maduvagi Mysuru dorege makkalagade hogali. Right? So, right? So, people often ask me, you studied in Pilani thermodynamics, mass transfer operations, and after doing engineering, how did you become a philosopher? I say, that's why I became a philosopher. So, I don't know what answer he has to give to become a historian. So, my obeisances to Sri Vikram Sampath here. Generally, traditional lectures, discourses which are called upanyasams or pravachanams, they go on for days together. Anantarama Dikshitar used to give a 48-day mandalam for Mahabharatam, and if it's Ramayanam, it goes for 9 days, Bhagavatam 7 days. That's how I've been doing. Typically, the duration is 2.5 or 3 hours per lecture. So in the last few months, some of my own relatives have stopped coming for my 3-hour lectures. They say, whatever you say, this man called Anand says it in 30 seconds. So, from the bottomest of my heart, however bottom I could get. So, while they kept harping on me to give an answer to this question, they asked what should they have done. I said they could have just drawn a beautiful Banarasi brocade to her purple sari. Why? Because in Srimad Ramayanam, Dasharatha commands. He says, Lakshmana, my daughter-in-law Sita should not suffer in the forest. She has chosen, she has volunteered to come to the forest, but she shouldn't suffer. So for all the 14 years, you should be carrying all the necessary ornaments and dresses for her. So Sita did not wear valkalam in the forest. She wore silk saris with perfect borders because Vedanta Deshika says, Taddakulanka Murtau, while she was kidnapped on that day, she had a silk sari with a hamsam border. So, the verse in Srimad Ramayanam Ayodhya Kandam goes, Vanavasam hi sankhyaya vasam syabharanani cha. Lakshmana carry as many saris she needs for the 14 years. So, Lakshmana, this comes in Srimad Ramayanam, so he was rattled. See, for how many days can I carry the saris? So, he probably would have asked, is there somebody who can give her a match in the saris? Here is Shefali Vaidya. So, with such luminaries present and so many astikas that I know of, there's still left to be a temple built in Coimbatore where the temple has not called me for a lecture. I'm so very grateful and thankful to the astikas of Coimbatore. I often say, if Chennai, Madras is the cultural capital, Coimbatore is the spiritual capital. So, my namaskarams to all of you again. In the recently taken movie of mine, I have one person whom I'm very close to. She played the role of Gautami, Shakuntala's foster mother. Here we have Pavitra with us. Vedanta Deshika, while speaking about Bhagavad Ramanuja says, Upavitinam urdhvapundravantam trijagat punya phalam tridanda hastam sharanagata sarthava hamide shikhaya shekharinam patim yatinam. This is that state. This is that bhumi where bhakti was born. Now I'm not making this statement with no reference. Srimad Bhagavatam states, Utpanna dramide chaham. Bhakti tells Narada, Narada, know where I was born. Utpanna, I was born. Dramide chaham, I was born in the state of Dramidam, Dravidam or Dravida. So bhakti was born here. Kvachit kvachin mahabhaga dramideshu cha bhurishaha tamraparni nadiyatra kritamala payasvini kaveri cha mahapunya pratichi cha mahanadi, says Shuka Brahmam. All the Alvars were born here. And this is that state which is given Bhagavad Ramanuja, who fostered, who nurtured Visishtadvaita as a philosophy, as a Siddhantam, which just did not stick itself to the borders of Tamil Nadu. Agastya Bhasha Deshattukku Uttaravadhiya irukka Kudiya Idam, says Vedanta Deshika in his commentary called Munivahana Bhogam to Tiruppanalvar's work called Amalanadipiran. It went beyond borders. In fact, Kanakadasa, the celebrated poet of Karnataka, in the 15th century, in his work called Mohana Tarangini, in the opening statement states, Bhagavad Ramanuja Muni Charanau. He says, I salute to the feet of Bhagavad Ramanuja, the man from the coastal Karnataka. BAPS, Akshardham, which we are all aware of, the stringent followers of the Swami Narayana Sampradayam, who was called Sahajanand Swami, in his work called Shiksha Patri tells, oh my dear students, if at all you would like to know the quintessence of Vedanta, Mimamsa and Bhagavad Gita, read only the commentary of Ramanuja. This is his statement in Shiksha Patri. Ramanandi Sampradayam, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was so amazed at Ramanuja's work that he stayed in Sri Rangam for 6 months, states Chaitanya Charitamritam. So this is that bhumi. In fact, Ramanuja has been so appealing that even some of the political stalwarts of the state who refused to accept Ram accepted Ramanuja in their last days. So that way Ramanuja has touched the hearts of the uninitiated too. Now the topic states Visishtadvaita. Interestingly, Ramanuja doesn't call his philosophy by any name. In his 9 works, he has given 9 works: Sri Bhashyam, Gita Bhashyam, Vedanta Deepam, Vedanta Saram, Vedartha Sangraham, Sharanagati Gadyam, Vaikuntha Gadyam, Sriranga Gadyam, Nityam, and so on. In none of his works, he refers to the philosophy that he throws as postulates as Visishtadvaita. It is only in a commentary, which is the notes taken by Sudarshana Suri during the classes of Vatsya Varada Guru called Nadadu Rammal, in his work called Shruta Prakashika, he states it could be called Vishishta Advaita, qualified Advaita. So Visishta Advaita is also Advaita, but it is qualified Advaita. Then how do we differentiate in names? Shankara's is Maya Vishishta Advaita, Ramanuja's is Guna Vishishta Advaita. This is how scholars and Vidvatsadas would differentiate. Now, to understand Bhagavad Ramanuja, first of all, we need to unlearn what we have learnt wrongly about Ramanuja. Because the process of unlearning itself is the first step. So it's often said that Ramanuja went atop the tower, he shouted the Ashtakshara Mantram, people came. See, just imagine, Om iti vyaharet, namaha iti paschat, narayanaayet uparishtat, Om ityekaksharam, namaha iti dve akshare, narayanaayeti panchaksharani, says Upanishad. So the pranavam is ekaksharam, namaha is dve akshare, narayanaya iti panchaksharani. So 1, 2, 5 is 8. Imagine he goes to the top of the tower, he shouts an Ashtakshara mantra, and everybody has turned a Vaishnavite and everybody has gone to moksham after that. If the mantra alone can give so much, then we wouldn't need books that are going to be commented upon at all. So this is the first thing that comes as a process that we need to unlearn. Before I get to that part, of course this will come in a part of my lecture, we need to understand why the need for another philosophy. People often ask, couldn't have the process of philosophy itself stayed with Advaita? Vedanta tells that for any Chetana, any Jivatma, see, he has started with a history class, second comes philosophy. Imagine this day. Okay, so I'll try my level best to make it relatable and understandable. You should also try equally to, right? It's a two-way process. Now, Vedanta tells for any Jivatma, moksham is only through jnanam. That's a statement of the Vedanta. Now we cannot call it the Iyer Vedanta, Iyengar Vedanta, Mudaliyar Vedanta. There is only one Vedanta. Fortunately or unfortunately, there is only one. The statement is through jnanam you get moksha. What is that jnanam? What is that jnanam required? Adi Shankara stated, Vakya Janita Jnanam. If you read the Mahavakyams, you get a knowledge as a result of it that will give you moksha. Well, Ramanuja did not refute it, but he looked to the society. He said, we are offering something in theory. Let us see what is there in practice. In practice, the practice was a person who has taken up to sannyasam will only get moksha. During the times of Ramanuja, before him, the practice was only a person who has taken up to sannyasam, who has become an ascetic, will get moksha. Who can become a sannyasi? Next question. Shastram tells that women cannot become sannyasis. Let us take an example of Shabari. Shabari, while she is introduced by Valmiki in Aranya Kandam, she is called Shramani. What does Shramani mean? Govindaraja in his commentary called Govindarajiyam states, it is like a woman who has taken up sannyasam, but not exactly sannyasam. This is what he comments. So women were not allowed to become sannyasis. Why? If I don't tell that why, some Mahanubhava will download this lecture. He will have all the time in this world to download that 160 MB lecture, cut this 10 seconds alone, and next day I'll be boycotted. Because you don't have to sacrifice anything because you're already a personification of mercy. So you don't have to become a sannyasi. Now, women cannot become sannyasis, but what is the rule till then when Ramanuja lived? Sannyasis can get moksha. One. So then Ramanuja thought, we keep telling people that Veda and Vedanta is for all. But if we say that moksham is only for sannyasis and sannyasis are only people, only if you're born as a man you can become a sannyasi, then aren't we excluding a larger section of the society from it? No. Veda and Vedanta couldn't have spoken in this fashion. So he went back to the books again. Then he looked at the word sannyasa. What does sannyasa mean? Using Panini's aphorisms, sutrams, he derived at one definition. Samyak nyasaha sannyasaha. It's a beautiful way that he has derived. I'll tell you how. What does a sannyasi mean? Generally, a person who has abandoned all the comforts and the riches that he has bequeathed or he has gained, either through his efforts or something he has got from his ancestors. So I have a beautiful house, I have a wife, I have children, I have all the comforts, I abandon them, like how Vibhishana did. So that state becomes sannyasi. I hope you all know, in most of the sampradayams, be it Advaita, Visishta Advaita, Madhva Sampradayam, if a person has to become a sannyasi, he will go inside the waters neck deep. And then he has to raise his hands. And it has to be heard a few yojanas away. Few yojanas, no microphone, no amplification. He has to say, I have left my family. I own nothing. He has to shout. Then he will be given the robes. And from that day, he can wear those robes and call himself a sannyasi. If he is an Advaita sannyasi, he will have Ekadandam. Visishta Advaita sannyasi, he will have a Tridandam. This is the technical way a person becomes a sannyasi. But what does the definition of sannyasi hold there? That he has abandoned the riches. A good kurta, and if you have surrendered to Paramatma, that moment you become a sannyasi. Thereby he said, then everybody is entitled to moksham. Though Veda and Vedanta, which doesn't differentiate, will not differentiate this way. This became a huge revelation in this scholarly world. Now, this is Visishta Advaita, the way he treated Sharanagati as an upayam. It is one amongst the 32 Brahma Vidyas. Now, let me take you to two beautiful anecdotes from him and his predecessor. Ramanuja treated Yamunacharya or Alavandar as his role model, though he couldn't learn directly under him. I'm talking about the ninth and the 10th and the ninth, later half of the ninth and the first half. I have a historian here. So, 10th century. Because when we learn Kalakshepam under our traditional Acharya, more than the dates, we concentrate only on the shlokas. We have to by heart like 1,000 shlokas. Now it is very imperative for us to by heart the dates also. And now I have to tell you this. Now I'll revisit my narration. Ramanuja, who was a Hindu, he learnt under Yamunacharya, who was another Hindu. Otherwise, they will also become non-Hindus. Now, Yamunacharya had many disciples. One of them was a person called Maraneri Nambi. These names could be tough. People often come, sir, while listening to the pravachanams, we are able to comprehend, appreciate everything. And after the lecture is over, those names don't stick to us. If people ask me, I don't know what to reply. What should I do? So be that way. See, if everybody remembers everything that's heard, then there'll be a huge competition for us. It's always good. Okay, so the person was called Maraneri Nambi. He belonged to a village called Maraneri. He was not a Brahmin at all. But Yamunacharya said, anybody can learn Vedanta under me. So Maraneri Nambi joined him. The other students, a majority of the students who were learning under Yamunacharya were Brahmins. But when it came to pravachanams, there was no differentiation at all. When it came to treatments, when it came to friendship amongst them, there was no disparity. It did so happen that Yamunacharya's Pathashala, the place where he was tutoring his students, had undergone a lot of damages, Shithilam. So he wanted to reconstruct the hermitage. So the students got some money here and there, and with that they constructed a beautiful Pathashala for the teacher. The date was fixed for the Grihava Pravesham, for the housewarming. Housewarming is not Griha Pravesham, but if I stop with Griha Pravesham, some may ask, what is Griha Pravesham? So I don't know what is housewarming. I know Griha Pravesham, but those of you who may want to listen to words of Rennacharya and Martinacharya, please know that to be Griha Pravesham. So the date was fixed for the Grihava Pravesham. On the previous day, just before the Griha Pravesham, the other students invited Maraneri Nambi and said, see, this is where we are all going to study from now on. Look at this place we have constructed. You like it, Maraneri Nambi? And Maraneri Nambi took some photos and everything, and he said, it's also all good, and he went away. The next day was the actual Griha Pravesham. Everybody, every Sishya had come with the family, but Maraneri Nambi. So Yamunacharya, the teacher, was seated and he was looking at when Maraneri Nambi would come. And then he asked his other students, where is Maraneri Nambi? They were a bit hesitant to reply, but then they mustered courage and said, Maraneri Nambi is not amongst us because he is not us. So we called him yesterday and we have showed him the house. From tomorrow when the classes happen, he'll come. Maraneri Nambi said, Griha Pravesham is already done. They asked, no sir, we are yet to do a Griha Pravesham. Yesterday Maraneri Nambi had come, right? That is Griha Pravesham for me. Today there will be no Griha Pravesham. So this was Yamunacharya in the 9th, 10th and the 11th centuries. Look at his grand disciple, Bhagavad Ramanuja. Again, remember names. Under Yamunacharya, there were 15 Sishyas who learnt, says Vedanta Deshika in Guru Parampara Prabhavam, which is a preface to Rahasyatraya Saram. 15 Sishyas learnt. The most important, the primary amongst them was Mahapurna, called as Periya Nambi. There was another person called Periya Thirumalai Nambi, called Sri Shaila Purna, who was Ramanuja's own uncle. Now, while Ramanuja went to Srirangam and wanted to bring about changes in the administration patterns, he gathered a lot of Sishyas. He was just like a magnet, a sponge, says Vedanta Deshika. Yamuna apita shai bahuna yatirajena nibhadda nayaka shrihi mahati gurupankhtihara yashtihi, he says in Yatiraja Saptati. So during the times of Ramanuja, while his teacher Periyanambi or Mahapurna also lived in Srirangam, there was this issue. What was the issue? I spoke about this person called Maraneri Nambi. Maraneri Nambi was not a Brahmana. Because he started learning Vedanta, his community excommunicated him. Why do you want to learn all this Vedanta that belongs to the Brahmanas? Is this going to be of any help to you? So he started learning Vedanta. In his last days, he told his Sahapati, the classmate who was Mahapurna, see, I think in a few days from now, I will die. You know, people, you should understand the life history of all our acharyas. Shastram tells that if you follow certain aphorisms mentioned in the Shastram, you will know when your Atma is going to depart. In fact, the Acharya who taught me Gita Bhashyam called Srivatsankacharya used to tell that while he was a little boy of 7 years, one day his mother came and stood. After having her bath, she came and stood before the mirror. And she told her son, who was my Acharya, who was 7 years old then. He was a Mahamahopadhyaya. So she told, Srivatsanga, Yaro terirada, varedo pomnatika kannadile terira. I can see some other lady in the mirror. Because Shastram tells, a few minutes before the Atma leaves the body, you will be seen as a different person in the mirror. And if you look at the sun, it says that you can see a small black dot amidst it. These are all the indications. Then they would come back and then they will make arrangements. Muthuswami Dikshitar, the moment he knew this, he then called the students and said, please recite the Kriti Meenakshi Me Mudam Dehi in, it is Gamaka Kriya in his school, which is Purvi Kalyani. That is when while the students were chanting, Meena Lochani Pashamochani Manini Kadamba Vanavasini Meena Kshi Pashamochani, that Jivatma left the body. Well, so Maraneri Nambi knew when his Atma would leave the body. So he called his Sahapati Mahapurna and said, Mahapurna, I will die in a few days from now. This body, which has been carried by the Jivatma, remember, you have to be very careful in Vedanta. The body doesn't carry the Jivatma. The body has been carried by the Jivatma. The Jivatma carries the body. So this body which has been instrumental in acquiring the quintessential knowledge from this Acharya should not be cremated by people who are kith and kin to me, because they have excommunicated me thinking what I am doing is wrong. So you should be the one who should be performing the funeral rites for me, Mahapurna. I am talking about an incident 1000 years before. Mahapurna said, don't worry, Maraneri Nambi, I will do the final rites for you. Well, on the set date, on the set time, Maraneri Nambi passed away, and then Mahapurna performed the final rites on the northern banks of Kaveri. If you know Srirangam, Srirangam is an island in the fresh waters of Kaveri. You have got the northern Kaveri, which is called Kollidam, and the southern Kaveri, which is called Punni. That name has it's gone so viral, right? It's called Kanaka Mukhari. Kanaka means gold, Pun, because when the sun shines, the waters look like gold. That's why she's called Punni. So, Kanaka Mukhari, or you can call her, these are the words Vedanta Deshika uses. Now, the southern Kaveri is where it leads you to Tiruchirappalli. So, in the northern banks is where even today cremation is performed in Srirangam. So, Mahapurna performed the final rites of his classmate called Maraneri Nambi. And he had to take bath, because after you perform the rites, you drench yourself. And as he was walking home, the other people who lived in Srirangam, they saw this and went to Ramanuja's Matham. They told, you keep talking about you keep telling people adhere to Shastram. Look at what your Acharya has done. Your Guru, who is a Brahmana, has performed the funeral rites for a person called Maraneri Nambi who does not belong to the Brahmana Varna. Go and ask him, why is he doing all of this which is Shastra Viruddham? Ramanuja said, I will not give an answer to this. You should all listen to the answer what my Acharya has to say. He goes, knocks at the door. Mahapurna's daughter, little girl called as Attulai. You get this name pronounced from a person who says that I shall defend the Tamil rights. Attulai. The ra. We'll just kill him there. Attulai came and opened the door. And she said, Bhagavad Ramanuja has come. I'll call my father. So Periya Nambi came and said, Ramanuja, I'm so happy to see you. Sir, let's keep all these Mukha Prashnam and all these words of courtesy for some other time. Now you tell me, should you have performed the final rites of Maraneri Nambi? This anecdote, what I'm stating, is mentioned twice. Once in the Vyakhyanam of the greatest of the Tamil Vaishnava Acharyas called Manavala Mamunigal. He states in his commentary, Ingane ni cheyyalamu, can you do this? For which the Acharya said, listen to me patiently, Ramanuja. You are asking me how, as a Brahmana, I have performed the final funeral rites of Maraneri Nambi, who is not a Brahmana. But you answer this question. Rama, who was a Kshatriya, performed the funeral rites of a scavenger called as Jatayu. Has Maraneri Nambi become so inferior to Jatayu, or have I become so superior to Rama that I should not be performing the funeral rites? Yudhishthira performed the funeral rites of Vidura, who was born to a maid. Have I become greater than Yudhishthira? Yudhishthirane kattilum naan uyarndavano. Viduralvane kattilum avar taalndavaro. Chakravarti Tirumagane kattilum Perumale kattilum naan uyarndavano. Periyudayare kattilum avar taalndavaro. Pailum Shudaruli Murtiyum Nedumar Kadimayum Kadalosayo. Alvar Shonnadai Shiridenum Shayalpadutta Vendavo Jiya. Shouldn't you put what you have learnt in philosophy to practice where you treat another person with the same respect? This was Ramanuja of the 11th century. Now, while we talk of Ramanuja, of course, a lot of the people in the state in the last 60 years, they have nothing against Ramanuja. They won't speak a word against him because they know that he fought for a certain cause. But what they refuse, or probably they don't know, is he remained within the system and reformed the system. There is a difference. You can always get out of the system, throw abuses at it, say that let's get this system dismantled, break. Then throw another option for us. You have to be within the system and reform the system. This is what Ramanuja did 1000 years back. He never went against a single line of the Shastras. He went against the mentality of the followers of the Shastras. There is always a difference. This is one. And another point that I would like to make is with respect to the languages. How Visishtadvaita brought in Tamil as an equal, if not more powerful, but at least at par in the Vedic tradition. Yes, there was a notion that if at all one has to propitiate the god in the agamic format, it has to be in Sanskritam. But Ramanuja said, Bhasha Geetif Prashasta Bhagavati Vachanat Rajavachopacharat. If you have to praise the good deeds of a king, how does it matter in which language you do? Right? When a political leader is seated, Ingalai Varavaikum Talaivare. Is another Deivame Talaivare. Then there's another person who comes with the English praises as well. Now the person may not be able to comprehend English, but he would still love to listen to it because he knows there is something good being told about him. Correct. Bhasha Geetif Prashasta Bhagavati Vachanat Rajavachopacharat. If a Raja is being praised, Upacharat, it has to be in any language. So it is very imperative that we bring the Nalayira Divya Prabandham of the Alvars within the sanctum sanctorum of the temples. This was a huge revolution in those days, and Vedanta Deshika carried this torch further through Adhyayanotsavam, which was an erstwhile practice. Last point, because there are other sessions as well. Last point. Okay, the last 30 seconds. Around the 5th, 6th, 7th centuries, the Alvars who came up with the beautiful verses, it is called Pasuram, Eerachorkal, Aruli Chayal. These are the words that we use. Especially two Alvars, Nammalvar and Tirumangai Alvar. When they sing praises of the Lord at one state, it is called Tvara in Bhakti Yogam. In that state, for a moment, they will turn into a woman. It is called Nayika Bhavam. Later in the 15th century, we had Kshetraya, who came up with beautiful padams, and then you have such padams and javalis in the Sringara tradition. I'm talking about the 5th century. So for a moment, Alvar will think that he is Parankusha Nayaki, and she is pining for the Lord's love. And then he will sing Pasurams. So when Tirumangai Alvar becomes a Nayika, he is called Parakala Nayaki. Parankusha and Parakala Nayaki will sing praises. Tivalum Venmadi Pol, Tirumugattarivai, Seringadalil, Nin Ahatiruppadum Ashai Vidalal, Kuvalayankanni, Kolliyam Pavai, Solludiniyan, Ninindayatal, Nayandirundai, Trivedandai, Endai Pirane. Trivedandai is Nitya Kalyana Perumal, next to Mayajal in ECR Road. Right, these are the verses that talk about Nayika Bhavam. But again, in Visishtadvaita, the philosophy, in Sri Vaishnava Sampradayam, which is a theology, there was an opposition as to a person who's born as a man. How can he assume that he is a woman and sing? Isn't this wrong? Does it have precedence? Right, for everything we look at precedence. When there's a case that comes to the court, they'll say, in similar case was heard in 1973 by BBBP Mishra in the Patiala High Court. Similar case was heard. Why do they give precedence? Because I am not giving a new judgment. There has already been a case like this, and this is the judgment given. What is the other reason? The person who has given the judgment is no more. You can't go and question him. His Atma is somewhere loitering. So, there is a precedence. So, they asked, a lot of the scholars to the north of the Vindhyas, they came in a debate and asked, your Alvar, which is Nammalvar and Tirumangai Alvar, born as men, are venerating the Lord in many pasurams as women. Either they turn into the mother of the girl who's pining for the Lord's love, or they become the girl, or they become the girl's friend, Sakhi, like how it happens in Jayadeva's Ashtapadi. For which Vedanta Deshika gives a beautiful reply. He says there is precedence. They asked from where? Show that reference. In Mahabharatam, there is a reference. In Mahabharatam, because Vyasa was born in an island on the waters of Yamuna. That's why he was called Dvaipayana. He was born in a Dvipa. He was dark, he was Krishna Dvaipayana. So, Krishna Dvaipayana Vyasa states in Mahabharatam, when Draupadi was married, she was married to Arjuna. She didn't know it was Arjuna first of all, because they were in incognito, Ajnata. Then only after coming here, she realizes that she has to marry the 4 other men as well. So at that point in time, she was taken to Drupada Desham, Drupada's country, and she had to be decked in all ornaments. It seems the women started speaking amongst themselves. What is there in her that she has got 5 men at one time? What is written on her head? So that is when they branch the hair. This process of branching, in Tamil it is called Vagidu. In Sanskritam it is called Seemantam. So a woman who is pregnant for the first time, you perform a samskara called Seemanta, because that is when you branch the hair. Setupata Seema Seemantita Samudra, says Vedanta Deshika. When Rama constructed the Setu from Bharata Desham to Lanka, he drew a Seemantam in the oceanic waters, because it was like a branch, right? Seema Seemantita Samudra. So the Seemantam was performed for Draupadi. Then the women thought, she deserves the 5 men. The other girl asked, why? Look at her beauty. I wish I was born as a man to appreciate her beauty more. So, Vyasacharya says, for a moment, the lady thought that she was a man to appreciate her beauty. So he says, when Vyasa says that a woman can assume that she could be a man for a moment to appreciate the woman's beauty, why can't Nammalvar and Tirumangayalvar for a moment assume that they are women to appreciate the Lord's beauty? Panchali Gatra Shobha Hrit Hridayavaduhu Vargapum Bhavanitya, he says in Dramidopanishad Tatparya Ratnavali. So more than in one way, be it integrating the Tamil literature, Bhakti literature into the Vaidika system, or defending the emotions portrayed by the Alvars in the Prabandham, and of course, to make philosophy as acceptable, relatable, enjoyable, and equal for all, Visishtadvaita as a philosophy, Sri Vaishnava Sampradayam as a theology, Yamunacharya, Bhagavad Ramanuja, Vedanta Deshika, Manavala Mamunigal, and many others have worked very, very hard to make this as such a beautiful system that most people can never point fingers at. And that has been true because this state which has given Ramanuja also had a lot of people who hurled abuses at this Sanatana Dharma but couldn't throw one abuse at Ramanuja because he had done in such class and such beauty what these people couldn't do in these 60 years that he had done it 1,000 years back.